Hi, my name is Tiffany, and this is a tutorial video on how to play and run Blades in the Dark One More Multiverse Edition. So this is going to be the first of 3 videos. This video is meant for people who are already familiar with the rules and mechanics of Blades in the Dark. We are not going to go over that. We are just going to go over the parts specific to One More Multiverse. In videos 2 and 3, we are going to give a tutorial for players and GMs, respectively, who are new to Blades. So we will teach rules and mechanics there. But this is for you all who already know and love this system. So let's get into it. Okay, first up, getting started. Go to multiverse.com, very simple, to make an account and buy the game. Once you've bought it, you can click Start Game. And if you pre-ordered, just use the redemption link in your email. If you are the GM, but if also you're just a person in the group who bought the game, you'll be making a new verse. That's like your campaign world, basically. And then inviting everyone else to come play. The first thing you'll see once you've made your verse is your very own verse landing page. If you're the GM, when you're ready, feel free to edit this art, text, etc. to whatever makes sense for your campaign. And please do take a look before you start at these safety tools down here. We have built a custom lines and veils tool for people to anonymously input their preferences. And so as GM, please do check your group's anonymous lines and veils summary before you start playing. Now we're in. This is Duskfall. Before I go over anything in detail, let me give you a basic tour of the OMM interface first. This is your world map. Each pin is a portal to a different pixel art level and location. So you can click to go there. I'm also just zooming out here. You can see, you can use your trackpad or control and a scroll wheel to zoom in and out. If you want to add new levels and locations to the map, the easiest place to do it is by hitting the plus. On your left, generally, are going to be tools that affect the level and visuals of what you see. This one in particular, the second one here, is the cinematic pod. And so that is for scenes or entire games that are going to be run theater of the mind, for those of you who prefer to play like that. So we are going to go over that really soon. On the right are generally tools for gameplay. So you can see in-game chat, dice roller, etc. We'll go over those next. Here in the bottom right are very commonly used tools for gameplay for easy access. In particular, you'll notice the wiki. So that contains the entire rulebook and is also modifiable and a place for you to take notes. The NPC library, where all your NPCs live, so very important. Safety tools in the corner, etc. And here in the top left are your game guides. So they walk you through the 3 phases, as you can see here, the mechanics for score and downtime. All right, so that's your quick tour. And now let's get into the details. This video has a bunch of parts that are time-stamped below. First up, visuals. I want to talk about this first because I know this might be the part of Blades X OMM that is the most different for you if you are already used to running and playing Blades in the Dark. There are a bunch of different visual backdrops or options that you can choose from minute by minute, just whatever suits your session right then. The first of these is what we see here. It's just the map of Duskfall. I think what I have found is that for free play, for downtime, for any kind of roleplay situation where the characters are jumping around a lot across locations, kind of montage style, and certainly for moments when we are thinking about the broader faction game and the kind of overall context of the city of Duskfall. Honestly, I like to just roleplay in front of this map. I put a few small examples here, but in a long campaign over time, I find that a lot of people heavily annotate this map. We'll talk about NPCs in a bit, but I find it quite fun to just keep the major NPCs literally around here, as you can see, on the map, on their turf or hunting ground, wherever those NPCs are located. We've got text stickers, drawing tools, lots of fun ways to annotate this map and just make it a really helpful visual reference. In addition to the map, as previously mentioned, we have tons of levels, I think 134 that come with the game. We are going to pop into one right now. This is the Archive of Echoes. This is one of my favorites. This is an example of a highly literal level. This level, like most of our highly literal levels, we designed in particular to facilitate super epic scores. This one, as you can see, offers the opportunity to break players up and force them to separate, always very dramatic. Other ones present opportunities for puzzles, dead ends, etc. If you are running a particularly epic score, you love this location, maybe you are open to the score taking a little bit longer or being a little bit more tactically inspired, I think these literal levels can be enormously fun. And if fictionally appropriate, like if the Archive of Echoes is being broken to at night with no lights, I really like to add vision mode just to like amp up the drama and give me the opportunity to jump scare my players. If you are role-playing a scene, be it a score or anything else, where you don't want that level of literality, but you still love our gorgeous pixel art levels, we also have a variety of what I like to call vibes levels. So this one in particular is Barrow Bridge. All of our vibes levels and score levels, the previous kind, have been tagged as such, so you can search level templates for these. These are vibes levels. As you can see, there are some like fun literal details here. You can interact with like this NPC or this goat, always tempting for players. But overall, it's not a super tactical or literal level. This is, I think, a great level to just have on in the background if you are role-playing anything in Barrowcraft or anything where this might be kind of the right vibe that you're looking for. And so you're not going to be necessarily walking around expecting each and every building to represent what the players and yourself are like fictionally narrating, but you can still draw inspiration from the details you see and use some of our really fun level modifying features like right-clicking and adding interesting descriptions to things like you can see this one has, or our vibes and weather options, which lives on the left, as you can see, along with all those other like visual and level modifying tools. Our kind of like most vibesy level, this taken to the farthest extent, is our special theater of the mind level. I am obsessed with this. I think it is completely beautiful. That's what you are looking at here. This is our theater of the mind level. We specifically built it for moments or groups that really want to take that kind of literality out of it. They want to roleplay scenes that are like much more strictly imaginative, but still want access to all of OMM's features. The design for this in particular was very inspired by like a literal kind of like theater set in a way I really love. So you can see you've got a lot of the Duskfall art here. You can kind of scroll for you to look and again, set the vibe, set the intention. Your players can still walk around. WASD, by the way, to walk around. You can even place assets, annotate those assets, or place NPCs. We will go over NPCs in a second, but you can see this is how I like to use a theater of the mind level. I use all this space for note-taking with text stickers, and I do like to have the NPCs that are going to appear or have appeared in the scenes floating around, so we can still use the navigatable space of One More Multiverse to communicate who's near each other, who's speaking to each other, who's in the scene. But as you can see, it's a much more kind of like theatrical, imaginative space. So we included this level for that purpose. And if we go now to the absolute far end of the spectrum, if you are in a scene that is really, really role-play based, or if you really want to focus on kind of just like the vibes and feel of a scene instead of really having a pixel art background, we are going to come back, as promised, to the cinematic pod here on the left. So you can see there's actually a bunch of really fun cinematic tools here. Flash title, always a favorite. Staging, which you can use in any level. You can see here some PCs on the left and NPCs on the right. That kind of helps maybe sometimes like spotlight who's talking. But in particular, I want to talk about this feature down here. So you can see backdrops. We commissioned these four, oh my goodness, such beautiful depictions of Duskfall from incredible artist Amber Blade Jones. And we've intentionally chosen these four, as you can see here, to be pretty flexible and super vibesy, really high ambience. And so hopefully you can use them for a really wide variety of scenes. And so you can always just pop one of these on in the background rather than using a pixel art level. And you can just cut back and forth to backdrops from any place in Duskfall. If one of these four does not quite capture what you are looking for, you can paste in any image URL. Just like pop to Google Images, Google whatever it is that you're looking for, maybe draw on like a Pinterest board or some kind of image collection you have ready, and just right click and copy the image URL and paste it in, it becomes your backdrop. An awesome alternative to using the pixel art levels, or maybe only using the pixel art levels like very occasionally for like super special scores. If you want to be able to change up that background really fast and have sort of like ultimate location flexibility. And when you're using backdrop mode like this, it really just changes the visuals. You are still going to have access to all the other mechanics and stuff that we are going to talk about in a second. So my last tip on visuals before we move on to more mechanical things, we by default, because of the collaborative fiction element of Blades, give all people in a verse, players and GM, access to these sorts of like visual tools. And so I really invite you to consider letting your players help. I find it takes a huge weight off me as GM and also just keeps players from getting distracted and keeps them engaged if maybe somebody else is engaged in like an intense roleplay scene with an NPC. So I like to specifically designate a player to help with vibes and weather, a player to help put on music. When we're using backdrops, a player to be in Google Images, finding what we need. Next up, NPCs. I'm gonna pop into this level, as you can see here. The absolute basic, must know, right click, control. And now you, as an NPC, behave pretty much just like a PC. WASD to walk around, E to pick stuff up, X to put stuff down. You can even go now into Character Studio here on the right to change outfits and do all kinds of fun stuff. All of our major levels that DOSFall comes with, all those like pins you saw on the map, have been pre-populated with, we think like some cool looking NPCs. All right, so that's just the basics for controlling NPCs. Most of our NPC features live here. Bottom right, NPC library. This is your best friend. This first tab is the library tab. This is for tracking major NPCs in your campaign. Everyone in this library has a wiki entry. So I'm clicking through to somebody's here, and it even links to their faction. We're gonna talk about factions more in a second, but it's so beautiful. And they can just be placed easily straight from here from the library. Please note, these major NPCs are only ever in one place at a time because they are a singular major character. And so tracking them is really simple and clean. You can call on them out of the library whenever you need them, and they will just be placed and like taken away from wherever they used to be. When your game first starts, this library is pre-populated with your players' friends and rivals from character creation, and your crew's contact. It does also come with major canonical characters like the very famous Lord Skurlock, Dimmer Sisters, Bazo Baz, and the Lord Governor who runs the city. If you don't like our take on the canonical characters, of course, you can just go ahead and delete those. You can also add new characters from here, as you can see. You can choose from, I think it's about 250 pre-made appearances, or build completely from scratch, including, as you can see, uploading your own pixel art. The second tab of NPC management is Quick Place. Quick Place is the opposite of the library. These are basically like extras, or as I like to call them, set dressing NPCs. They're purely appearances, and so you can put the same person down a bunch. We've pre-populated, like I said, our locations with extras, and you can also place a bunch from here. Right click, again, to possess someone, move them around, or stage them, as we mentioned previously. And right click is also going to be how you add someone to the NPC library. And so that way you can kind of place down whatever appearances look intriguing or look appropriate to the setting. And then when your players end up interacting with that blue coat guard and befriending them in a flashback, etc., you can then retroactively add them to the NPC library to become someone important. Next up, this one's super fun. This is Roulette. Pretty self-explanatory. It can summon random NPCs from your pre-existing library or generate random, fresh, new ones for you, which is amazing, and you can filter by relationship. Last but not least, factions. If you've played Blades, you know how important the faction game is to a long campaign. So of course you see here this amazing resource. These are all the canonical factions that come with DOSFall and their major mechanical facts. You can change any of those mechanics straight from here. So you can see you can change tier, hold, etc. And you can also click through to the wiki entry that is generated for every faction. Here's where you can add lots of notes on that faction, and you can see every NPC who is in that faction. I think this is just incredible. If you've ever had to track just a huge stable of NPCs and factions, I think you will appreciate how truly magical this is. And so you can see the faction page is linked to NPCs. And the NPCs link back to the factions they're in. And you are selecting these from a drop down. So it's all very structured and clean. And of course, if we come back here to the faction table, you will see that you can make new factions. Of course, like one of the funnest things. And so this keeps your factions and your NPCs super organized. And I also want to call out here, if we open I'm just going to click and open one of my players as an example, players and crew sheets. But specifically, I think importantly, player sheets here have a section where they can store certain NPCs from the library, almost like a shortcut. You can see they can place it here out of their sheet, just like the library. And so this, I think, really helps players to just remember which kind of NPC relationships are really critical to the plot line. And again, helps them be co-authors in that fiction more effectively with you. Next up, let's talk mechanics. All that good stuff here on the right. So first up, chat, pretty self-explanatory. Stuff you say appears above your head if you're a character. I think that's cute. We'll talk about dice in a second. I want to talk here about Crew Pod. This is an incredibly handy thing to have open. You can see at the top, you've got crew information. You can click to open the crew sheet. I'll close that really quick. You can see you can also actually straight from here, instead of having to open the crew sheet, also change some of those crew mechanics, really handy. You can also see all your PCs here. You can see their stress. You can hover to see harm if they have any. You can also hover, by the way, over crew special ability to get more information. This is just an incredibly handy shortcut for you as a GM. You can also click, by the way, to go to exactly where your players are on the map if you are kind of spread out. Really handy. So Crew Pod, incredible. Next mechanic, rolls, of course. So we built a custom Blades dice roller. The most complex kind of roll here is action roll. So I'm just going to pull one up and set it up. You can see you can choose the player. You can choose the action. Anyone can choose the action, but we've put it up here, as you can see, kind of in that player box. Try and remind players that really they get to pick the action in Blades that they're rolling. You can set position and effect. Players actually get 2 buttons for Push Yourself and Devil's Bargain. You can only click one, not both. And crewmates who are not rolling get Assist Crewmate. Everyone is seeing kind of the option that is relevant to them at the time. And then the person who's rolling can click roll and you get the result, and it looks like this. And all the interpretive text you need is included. What's really nice is that the 2 stress for Push Yourself or the 1 stress for Assist is automatically applied to the relevant person's sheet. And the 1 XP in that attribute you get for making a desperate roll of a certain action is also automatically applied. And of course, all that automation and beautiful design is also implemented for, you can see here, we have group rolls. So stress automatically applied for results between 1 and 3, resistance rolls, vice rolls. These are really incredible. If you overindulge, it also shows you the overindulgence options to choose from. And just good old simple fortune rolls. Next up, the clocks pod. Okay, so here you can create and manage clocks. You can see you can make new ones, indicate how big the clock is, color code it, and select which clocks display in the HUD in the upper right, as you can see with these other ones, or not. You can resolve, delete, reactivate, etc. And just a little fun thing, if you want to call players' attention to something, when you left click to tick a clock or right click to untick a clock, it summons a flash title with that clock automatically, just to kind of draw everyone's attention to what is happening. Players on their sheet, by the way, I'll just open another player's sheet again to show you, have long-term projects. They can make their own long-term project clocks from here, and they will appear in the clocks pod for you to manage along with everything else in one beautiful, easy, centralized place. Other mechanics while we're here on the sheet, stress and trauma, of course. I do want to note that because stress is important, it shows up everywhere and it's all synced, not just on their sheet, but also here in the bottom left. Also in the crew pod, and also if you hover over any PC. Same thing with harm. We have a kind of redesigned harm table here to just try and make it clear, since it goes from less bad to more bad. And if a player has harm, it actually appears when they make an action roll, so you are reminded at the moment in case it is relevant and you as GM wish to take that into consideration. Also on player sheets as well as crew sheets, you will see our custom coin block. It helps remind players so you don't have to, that if they're holding more than 4 coin, that is an impractical amount to be carrying around. They can move to stash and move from stash back to their wallet, applying that 2-to-1 penalty. We really did get into the details here so that you and your players don't have to remember this stuff all the time. Last kind of like major mechanic, another personal favorite, if you come here to inventory, you can see players will be told to choose their load when scores start. We've got these beautiful hovers that give you extra information on anything in your inventory, and they can click, declare that they have something, and just like little fun fact, their character is holding it. Really nice. You can like adjust it on the body and everything. Now moving on to, as you can see here in the top left, our game guides. All right, so for score and downtime, there's quite a lot that I think we can do to help. So you can see here, if we go into score, we've got everything queued up for an engagement roll for you. So you can select your approach. It asks you for that specific missing detail that varies by score approach. And if we were a player, we would get a button here that takes us directly to inventory to choose our load. And then here you can make the engagement roll. There's a little link to that rulebook wiki for the list of major advantages and disadvantages in case you want a refresher. And then the results, as you can see, will show up here. Downtime, which is really mechanically beefy, as you can see, has like a much bigger guide, and it's going to walk you through all the steps of downtime. So you can see that is everything from rep after your score to coin, heat, and if it applies, even incarceration rules. A particularly beautiful, in my opinion, entanglement roll. And then a space for players to choose their downtime activities with a link to the wiki to learn more about the rules for any of them in case they forgot. And it creates this really nice checklist for you to go through all of the players' downtime activities. And I think here in particular in downtime, you can see we tried to really show you the rules text that was relevant, for instance, how much rep to award for each score, while still leaving this field totally free for you to make your own decisions as GM. And all of this, of course, the rep, heat, etc., is applied automatically to your crew sheet. Let me give you a little preview as to what your players are going to see in terms of character and crew creation. So if we come here to the crew pod, actually one of the options for you as GM, as you can see here, is to make a test character. And so this way you'll be able to try out character creation before your players get there if you so wish. I do want to emphasize though, that one of the things we really feel is that you should not need to understand every character creation option before you start a new campaign. And so the game really does walk the players through all of that. When your players are here and making their characters, if you are choosing to do this synchronously or like you happen to be online at the same time as them, we have, as you can see, a spectate mode for GMs during character creation. And so you can actually see where each person is and their sheets in progress as they fill them out. And so I'm just going to show you a fast forwarded version of character creation here. And then you can see I'm going to go into crew creation and just show you some quick clips from crew creation. Very similar to character creation. I want to call out this in particular. You can see we have really nice which faction is impacted drop downs for those steps in crew creation when you're starting to really entangle your crew with the world of Duskfall. You can click through to the crew wiki to refresh yourself as to the lore around that crew, and just like all of this, of course, is automatically implemented. The coin, the starting relationships with all those impacted factions. And now that we're done, you can see it culminates in that beautiful player sheet we talked about earlier, all the actions, all that, inventory, of course, and progression. And in the crew sheet, which, like I said, the information here is synced to those little shortcuts in the crew pod, as well as to downtime game guide. We've built the claims map. It's particularly beautiful. Just love the way that looks when you get a claim. Another kind of list of NPCs here for you all to just kind of bookmark any library NPCs that are significant to the crew. And then we did build some custom tools around cohorts here on the final tab. Really underrated mechanic in my opinion. So you can see you can store cohort NPCs, kind of get like a quick guide as to how to roll for them.
last but not least, because we have gone over a lot, if ever there's a mechanic that you were unfamiliar with, as you can see, rulebook is here in the bottom right, and also fully searchable here in the top left. So that is your not so short maybe tour of Blades X OMM. We are so excited to hear about your amazing epic scores and games, and we can't wait to play with you.